Hello. Um, just working? Yeah, I think it's working. All right, cool. It's like 2 a.m., so my voice is probably gonna be, no, it's fine. Yeah, it's good. All right, cool. So I decided to make a video because a lot of you guys were having issues with understanding exactly what I mean by like refactoring code and stuff like that. So I was like, you know what? Rather than just writing out documentation and stuff, that's going to take forever, and on top of that, it just doesn't really like give you a good idea of what's going on. Like I think seeing it in action serves better than just what's called reading it in text or stuff like that. So I was like, you know what? Why don't I just record something, record a video, and then you guys could get a better idea of like what you guys have to do and stuff. Um, so let me go over the steps in terms of front end development. So the front end side has 3 or 4 steps, depending on the way you look at it. So the first step is obviously prototyping in Adobe XD. This is a step where you create the design for the mockup for the UI. The second step is importing it to Supernova Studio, which is this, and generating the code. And this is also the place where you set different widgets, different like assets and stuff like that into different component types. So as you can see, here's a component type list. We have text, button, image, scrolling view, grid view, map view, circular indicator, page control, slider, switch. There's a lot of stuff, but you can set these values based on what purpose they serve. Yeah. So as you can see, these 3 are text boxes, text fields, and then this create thing is a create button, and then and then this sign in is also a button. Yeah, so this is the second step. The second step is obviously getting it into Supernova, generating the code. The third step is basically taking this code, importing it into the project, and refactoring the code to make it readable and to make it cleaner. This is the part where I think some of you guys had questions on exactly how to go about doing this. So yeah, so I'll go ahead and this video's purpose is to walk you through this. Now, the thing is, this may be slow paced for you. If it is, then you can go ahead and increase the speed of the video just to get through this quicker, or you could just skip to the parts where you really need to know, or like that, skip to the parts that you need specifically. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and walk you through from basically how from the export of this Supernova thing all the way to the point of adding the view model functions. Actually, we might even go ahead and make a dummy view model thing and then add the functions there. So we can go ahead and do that. Yeah, sure. That actually sounds like a good idea. Let's just go ahead and do that. Cool. Let's go ahead and begin. So this is by far not the best design screen. Obviously, our design screen our screens are gonna look a little better than this. I spent a total of like 5 minutes on this, just setting these to text views and stuff like that. But obviously, more work is going to be put into them, into the official ones. So yeah, expect something a little neater in terms of the resulting code. But this will be enough to kind of give you an understanding of what you have to do in terms of refactoring the code. So first thing to do is export. So we're going to go ahead and export this as a Flutter project, and we're going to find a place to put this in. Obviously, the person who's working with Supernova is going to be doing this step, and then they're going to be sending you this. The people who are exporting that particular page, they're going to send you this this file. Cool. Now that we have this there, let's go ahead and I think I have terminals open. Yeah, I have one terminal over here. What we could do is we can go to ls. What did we make? cd sign in. I think that's the file that we just created. We're going to go ahead and do code dot. That's going to open up Visual Studio Code, and what we're going to do is just browse through the code that Supernova generated for us. So this is the code that Supernova generated for us. It's kind of looks like an incomplete Flutter project, and that's technically what it is. What we have over here is we have the lib file, and then we have this specific thing right here is the screen. This is the screen that it generates for us, all the UI code for that particular screen. Sign up daily, that's what it is. Let's go ahead and click it, and this is our screen code. This has all the buttons, all the text views, all the images, everything over here is written in Flutter for us with this stuff right here. Now this looks like a mess. There's a lot going on here. Obviously this is where refactoring comes into play. Refactoring is basically taking this code and making it neater, making it look more appealing and just easier to work with when you're a developer. So that's what refactoring is. And obviously the machine can't refactor very well, but that's why we're kind of taking it into our own hands to do the refactoring. What else is there? There's also something called values, and values has this file called colors, and colors basically has all the colors, like the constant colors that we're using in this file. So we'll go ahead and work with that in a bit. Let's just go ahead and open up common events. So this is our project. We're going to open this up. Before you do anything, make sure that you git pull, get the latest thing. It's already up to date, so that's good. Next is going to be creating a new branch, because obviously we're working on a new feature now. We're working on a new page. So the next thing to do would be to create a new branch, a new feature branch, because we're adding a new feature, and this feature is basically a new page, a new screen. So let's go ahead and add that. Git branch feature. So before any feature, we obviously add feature slash and then the name of the feature. So let's just say, what are we adding right now? We're adding a register screen, not necessarily a sign-in screen. We're a register screen because there's email address, confirm email address. So register screen, cool. Git checkout, because we're still in the develop branch, checkout feature slash register screen. Now we're in feature.register screen, clear. If you don't have this tool where it shows you where you are, just do git branch. And it will show you all the branches, and it will show you which one you're on. What's it called? Yeah, cool. So we are now on the feature slash register screen. Just click this. As you can see, we're on feature register. Cool. I don't know what we're doing here. Let's go ahead and close this out. Okay, and now we are in our project. This is common events. If you guys can recall, this project is split into two different parts. There is backend and middleware, and then there is frontend and UI. And this is represented here by the folders. Core basically has all the backend and middleware stuff, including the view models and all the logic for our views, which go over here in these models. The UI has all of our UI code, and then it also has the theme stuff and individual widgets that we're going to be reusing throughout the app. Yeah, so let's go ahead and take a look at the screens. Since we're making a new screen, let's go ahead and click New File, and we're making a register screen, so let's do register screen.dart. Okay, we're making a new screen. Cool. And for the code for this, I mean, we already have the code up here, so let's just go ahead and copy all this, paste, there you go. Now we have our code for our new screen. Who would have thought? We basically saved so much time by not having to write all this. What else? Let's go ahead and change this from whatever this is to register screen. It's a stateless widget. And what else? What else do we need to do? There are some errors over here. Let's go ahead and take a look at what these errors are. So these errors are basically app colors. So what Supernova does is it takes the colors that are commonly used throughout throughout a certain page, and it puts them into this class called app colors, so that it can use them as properties from that thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and make our own colors.dart, because we don't have one right now. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and add a new file here. Let's do colors.dart, and we're putting this under the theme folder because I mean it's like relevant, I guess, to what themes are. So let's go ahead and copy this code, paste it right here, save this, and then let's go ahead and click this light bulb, and it should give us the recommended thing to import the file. That's perfect. Now we don't have any more errors. Cool. Okay, so refactoring. Refactoring is basically, like I said, just taking this stuff and making it neater, making it more readable, because this is definitely not readable. None of this is readable. So let's go ahead and go through this. So the whole point is that we go through these widgets and then we bundle the widgets that make sense being together. And we basically create these private functions that return widgets. And we place these private functions inside of this column thing right here. Because if you look over here, this is basically a giant column of widgets stacked on top of each other. We have this, we have this, we have this, 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 this. We have a bunch of elements stacked on top of each other. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to clean this up a bit, put like these bundles of these widgets into their own separate private function that returns those widgets, just to keep things clean. So you'll kind of understand what I'm talking about once we start this up. But the key to basically refactoring is being able to collapse things. So let's go ahead and collapse this. We don't need to do this. And as we're collapsing things, you can start to identify different widgets. Over here, the first thing, so what we have is we have a scaffold, and we have a container, we have a column, and then we have a bunch of children. And from right over here, we can kind of already tell that we're stacking some of the stuff on the screen right here. So let's go ahead and take a look. The first child in this children array is a image comment logo.png, which is this. This is exactly what it is. So let's go ahead and collapse this. And we know straight up that this first widget right here represents this logo. Let's go ahead, and a good way to, to track what things are is by adding comments right on top of them. So logo. What is this next thing right here? Container text. It's text, and it has who are you? This is right here. So we know for a fact that this next widget in this children's array is the text over here. Let's take a look at the next thing. So align, create an account to continue. So we know for a fact that that is the text right underneath him. Cool. So let's go ahead and collapse this. And what we're going to do is, a good way to do this is to kind of see what makes sense being bundled together. So these two static text text widgets belong together. Like, they kind of make sense belonging together. They should be grouped together. These text fields belong together. They should be grouped together. They make sense being grouped together. But we could also group them with this button as well, because since it's like a whole system. What's called these two widgets belong together. See this image widget? It also has a bunch of ellipses that didn't really import properly, because, like I said, this is some last minute work. But they all belong together. So yeah, it's a matter of identifying what belongs together and then cleaning things up and putting different widgets into different functions based on what belongs together. So let's go ahead and type in welcome text. So welcome text means this stuff, these two things right here. These are all welcome text. Let's go ahead and continue. So we have email address. So we know for a fact that this is a text field, and we know that it's right here. So I'm expecting the next 3 different widgets are going to be this, this, and this. So let's take a look and see if I'm right. So yes, that's container, confirm email address, which is a second text field. Let's go again. We have a spacer. What is that doing here? Oh, I think I probably spaced things a little wrong over here, and it accidentally added a spacer. It's just like it's a widget. We obviously really don't need it, to be honest. And then another container. Cool. Now, when you get your code from the person that's working with the Supernova thing, I don't recommend you delete widgets like I did right now. Thing is, I know for a fact that it doesn't belong there, because I did this like last minute, and it was like some really crappy work. As you can see, the distancing between these two are not the same as the distancing between these two, so I kind of messed that up. But when you get your code from the actual, for like the person who's working with Supernova, don't do that. You can just keep it there, regardless. It'll be good. We'll test it and stuff like that, so it should be perfect. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and add comment, let's say text fields. We're just basically, we're labeling groups of widgets together based on what they're doing. Let's go ahead and see what this is. What is this? This is a flat button, text create. So this is basically this create button right here. So let's go ahead and collapse that. Just to be sure I'm recording, right? Yeah, I am. Okay, cool. Text fields, we'll collapse that together. We have another container over here that has a row. So it has a row, and then it has text already have an account as one of the widgets for the row, a spacer, and then we have another widget. It's an align widget with text sign in. It's a flat button, which is right here. So we know for a fact that this stuff is already bundled for us into a row, which is inside a container. So let's go ahead and label this the create button, and then we'll label this, we'll label this sign in button. Cool. Look how much, like, first of all, with all the collapsed bundles of code, it just looks a lot cleaner right off the bat. But when we expand this, it's still going to look like a mess. So what we're going to do is, a part of refactoring is basically taking these groups of code that are related to each other and putting them into private functions that return widgets. So let me demonstrate that right now. What we're basically going to do is we're going to create these private functions that return widget. So widget, and then private functions in Dart always start with an underscore, then the name of the widget. So the first thing we have is the logo. Logo images because there are a lot of images that you can't really see right now because they didn't import properly, but there are a lot. So they're basically ovals that we're supposed to give it like a flame aesthetic, but for some reason the gradient didn't import properly. But there are a lot of images in this one thing. So let's go ahead and open this up, and then return, because we're returning a widget, we're basically just going to return this. We're going to cut this out, and then we're going to paste it right here. Cool. And then we're going to replace this with a semicolon because that's the end. We're going to go ahead and copy all this, fix it, make it neat, align it, perfect, and close. Done. That's one. Now, since we have this widget here, since it's returning what we want to have in this position, we can just go ahead and add that. Open, close. There we go. GG. Now, we're going to continue to do this for the rest of them, and what we're doing is basically cleaning this up so it's very easy to locate different things rather than having to scroll through all this. So when we're going into the code as a developer, we're going to go into this, we're going to look at the column of the page, we're going to see all the assets and all the widgets lined up, and we can see these, rather than seeing all this stuff and having to scroll through all this, and obviously when you open all of them up, it's going to be even longer. You're going to have these functions that redirect you to different widgets that they return. So it's going to be a lot cleaner in general. So that's what we're aiming for. Let's go ahead and add the rest of these. So for this one, we can't return two different functions at the same time, but we want to bundle this into one function. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is we're basically going to wrap this in a column, because these are basically stacked, and we just want to return this as one big widget. And in order to bundle these two together, stack them basically, we're going to use, we could use the stack widget, but we're going to use the column widget for this. So widget, and then that, welcome messages. Cool, let's go there. We're going to go ahead and grab this, cut it out, and we're not going to like straight up just, what is going on? Okay, there you go. We're not going to go ahead and just return both of them because we can't return two different widgets at the same time. We can only return one widget, one thing. So we're going to do return column. We're basically placing these widgets into a column, and then children, and we're going to paste them right there. Let's go ahead and grab all this, fix it, align it, make it look good. There you go. That's one, that's two, and perfect, clean. That's awesome. Now we're going to go ahead and take this, we're going to put this right here, and comma, perfect. We've replaced our welcome message widgets with this function, and then when, let's just say the developer's going in for debugging, they want it. They're gonna hold this, they're gonna get the reference, and they're gonna be redirected to this. And it's just basically keeping components and modules and like groups of our page into functions that private functions that return each one of these, just to keep things neat. And this is very, very useful eventually. You're gonna see. So widget. Let's go ahead and add. Oh, and this is definitely how they do production level code as well. So this is like some industry techniques as well. Let's go ahead and do these text fields. So the thing about text fields, though, however, the thing about text fields is that they need something called a text editing controller. And these text editing controllers can only work if the widget that it's in is a stateful widget. Right now, it's a stateless widget. You'll know about this stuff if you do some research. So like, I'm not pulling this stuff out of thin air. Like, obviously I searched up how to use text controllers, and then they require that they have to be in a stateful widget, and then they have to have text controllers linked to them. So yeah, so what we need to do is obviously change this into a stateful widget. And if you have VS Code, you can go ahead and do click this basically, and then click the light bulb and click convert to stateful widget. And it will automatically convert your stateless widget into a stateful widget. Perfect. Now, what we can do is right over here, we can go ahead and create these text editing controllers that we're going to go ahead and add to these text fields. So let's go ahead and create a text editing controller for every single field. So we're going to need a text editing controller for the email address, one for the confirm email address, and then one for the password. Text editing controller, email controller equals new text editing controller. Now keep in mind that since we're using Dart, we don't need to necessarily write new. That's a feature of Dart where you don't have to write new, and this is basically the feature that allows us not to have to write new for every single widget that we create over here. So if that wasn't the case, then we'd have to write new for everything over here, but we don't. But I'm going to write new just to make sure that you guys understand that we're creating a new instance of this controller, but it's not necessary. Let's go ahead and email confirm email controller, and then we're going to do one more, then we're going to do password controller. Cool. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add these controllers to these text fields. So we're going to say this is the first text field. So this is the first text field. We're going to go ahead and write controller. We're going to assign these controllers to each one. So email controller for the email address one. We're going to go to the next one. We're going to do, oh, not the container. We're going to have to do it in the text field. And then we're going to do controller, what was it? Confirm email controller. And then for the last one, we're going to go ahead and controller password controller. Cool. Very nice. We're going to collapse these just to make things neat, and also collapse these. I think when we change it to a stateful widget, it like automatically opened everything. There, nice, cool. Now we added these variables. Let me collapse this as well. We added these text editing controllers to these containers. But the thing is, since we want to group them into a function, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to pass these controllers through a parameter. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do. We're going to go ahead and widget. Let's go ahead and say text fields. text fields, and then we're going to go ahead and since this is all stacked together, let's just go ahead and group them all with a column. So it's usually what you're going to do is you're going to use the widget that's grouping them together right now. So we're just going to use a column again. Return column, and then children are going to include, oh, nope, that's not what I wanted. I wanted these. Copy that, paste them in, but obviously we need to pass these into, let me go ahead and fix this up. Yeah, but obviously we have these controllers that are not passed yet into the function. What we need to do is we need to pass them into the function through the parameter thing. But here's a really cool shortcut that you could do. And what you could do is basically do that, and rather than having to write out the definitions of everything here into this field, what you could do is just straight up pass them into this function. So email controller, confirm, email controller, password, controller, and then close that up, and then click this, and then click the light bulb and say add required parameters. And what that does is you can just go through each one and then add the required parameter, and it does all that for you. And now you should be, now the controllers are being passed into this function, which are being passed into the text fields. So things are going to be working properly. Nice. That's the text fields. We're going to go ahead and continue. What do we have next? We have the create button and sign in button. So this is where things start interacting with our view models. Our view models have the functions that are going to respond to the button clicks. Right now, what Supernova did was they created functions for these buttons automatically. But the thing is, we're not going to be using these functions, or we're not going to be putting the functionality here because it kind of defeats the whole purpose of state management, which is the isolation of the logic code from the UI code, which is the whole purpose of the state management system. So what we're going to do is, the same way we pass parameters into these functions, what we're going to do is we're going to pass the view model into these as well. When we add state management, yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and do widget. What are we doing? A create button. So create button. That code goes here. I'm going to do return. And then we're going to return this thing. And we're going to go ahead and grab this, just align it to where we need it to be. There. Okay. As you can see, this is the function that is going to be that is going to run when the button is clicked. And obviously, what we're going to do is, so as you're doing this is something you guys need to keep in mind. As you're refactoring the code, you're going to find the places in the code that require logic and like processes and functions and stuff like that. And what you're going to do is you're going to basically list them out right up here. You're going to try to create this comment thing where you're going to create this view model variables, and you're also going to create view model functions. And what this is basically your way of listing out all the stuff that you need for the view model. So the thing is, like I said, you're going to be creating view model requests to the backend because you're going to be asking them to make view models for your screens. And this is a good place to keep track of all the variables that you're going to need, the dynamic variables, not the static variables, the dynamic variables, aka the variables that change, and the functions that you're going to need for your UI. So we're creating a register screen. Obviously, when we click the create button, we're going to want to take the email address, the confirm email address, and the password and do some stuff with that. We're going to need a function for that. So the first thing we're going to need to do is obviously confirm whether email address and confirm email address are the same. Second is we're going to have to make sure that the password is a valid password that they can use. And then third, we're going to have to take that data, send it to Firebase, and create a new user. So we're going to need 3 different functions. However, you can tell the person working on the backend to merge them all into one big function if you wanted to, and then return something based on that. So what we could do is we could just say we need a function that returns, let's just say, a bool, and we could say check emails, as in, do these emails, first of all, are they valid emails? And second of all, are they emails that match each other? Check emails. We're going to pass in email and confirm email, and they're both going to be strings. You don't have to necessarily put the types in it. This is just for reference for you to remember to add to your view model request. So this is a function that you're going to need, and this is what it's going to return, a boolean. Another function that you might need would be bool check password, and the reason why you'd return a boolean would be if you receive false, then you automatically know that that password is invalid, and you're going to send a message to the user saying that that password is invalid, and make sure you follow these guidelines. So check password, and this could be like in the form of like a toast or a pop-up, and you can search through pub.dev to find widgets that do that, and you can add them into your thing. Check password, what we could do is we can enter the password and then see whether that's a valid password or not. It will return true if it is, if it's true, return false if it isn't. And finally, we could do a future void, because it's not really going to return anything, create account based on the email and the password. Those are the 3 functions that we're going to need for this particular screen. And the create account is going to obviously connect to Firebase and do everything and stuff like that. You could also tell it to return the Firebase user once it's done loading and creating the account. That could be something, or it could just be null. It really doesn't matter, because in any case, it's going to automatically sign in, and it's going to become part of the global stream of the user. So it doesn't really matter. Of the current user. So let's go ahead and yeah, so for variables, you only need view model variables if they're dynamic. So basically, if things are changing, if this text is going to change at some point in the app cycle, in the screen cycle, then you're going to have to list that as a variable. So let's just say this changes. We're going to say what's called string variable or welcome text, and then you can also specify what you want to default it to. So like hello, that would be your default, and then you could also provide a function down here talking about, like, let's just say a function saying change welcome text, and then add maybe the new text. And that could be a function that the backend can implement, the backend developer could implement for dynamic text. And then you could change this if somebody like clicks a button or something like that, you know. But right now this is not very dynamic. We're going to keep it like whatever we set it to for now. So yeah, so as you're refactoring the code, make sure you keep track of all the functions that you're going to need to send as a view model request. But as of right now, like while you don't have your view model right now, you can just leave the default stuff right now that's left in there. This is like placeholder stuff until you get your real deal. Create button, cool, that's that. Let's go ahead and finish this up real quick so you kind of know you know the what's called, you know what to do. So it's a widget, sign, or footer. Footer would be better. Footer, and then there. This goes in here. We're going to cut that out. I'm going to go ahead and return it. Like I said, if it's just one widget, then you just go ahead and slap that widget on there. If it's more than one widget, then you're going to have to wrap it in a column or a row or whatever you're trying to do. There. Cool. And then the footer goes right here, the last widget. Cool. Okay. Now we have our code. This is basically refactored code. Now it's clean. It's easy to look through. You kind of know where everything is, and then you can go to each element of the screen without having to scroll through tons of stuff. Things are more organized. So yeah, this is definitely way better looking code. Now this is assuming you don't have, so at this point, once you're done refactoring the code, this is where you kind of gather your information that you kind of collected throughout the refactorization. And then you create a view model request based on this stuff. And the instructions on how to make a view model request are on the documentation I wrote. And I also provide an example issue on GitHub. If you go to the issues tab, there should be an example on how to do something like this. Now let's go ahead and create a fake view model. Let's just go ahead and create a view model with like empty functions, but I'll just basically show you exactly how to integrate it into your thing. Like once you get your view model, what do you do then? So let's go ahead and do this. Let's do register. So this is stuff that the backend developer will do. Register model. The Dart. So you have the register screen and then you have the register model. So for every screen you have a model attached to it. Unless it doesn't need code, which would be like, and it doesn't need dynamic code and stuff like that, which would be weird. Probably like an info page, if that. And even then, you'd still need to get data and stuff, but whatever. Okay, so let's just create a, let's create a register view model. Okay. You don't have to worry about what base model is. This is backend stuff. Let's go ahead and, so like I said, so the developer is going to have that view model request on hand. We need check emails, check password, and then create an account. We need those functions. So let's go ahead and add them. These are all going to be empty fake stuff. Check email, check emails, and then we're going to take string email. You can go ahead and skip this part if you want and just get to the part where I actually implement it. Email. And then, yeah, that's one function. I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste this, honestly. Okay, cool. Now this is basically our view model. Obviously, this is supposed to have the real code in it. The real deal is supposed to have the real code in it. Then it'll have like the return values. Thing is, if I put the return values without actually returning it, it's going to throw an error. So let's not do that. But right now I just kept them empty because they're not really returning anything. So yeah, you have your view model. Okay, now you want to go ahead and, so the view model is up and into the Git thing, the Git project, and now you pull it, you get your view model. What do you do then? This is where you have to do some thinking. So this is basically, you try to find the spot in the view tree that starts using dynamic data. So Does it start using it here? Not necessarily. Does it start using it here in this container? Not necessarily. However, let's just say it started using, like we're using some kind of function to change the gradient or something like that, then that's when we would put it right here because we're going to start using it in this position. However, you can just keep on going down children until you find the spot where you're going to start using it. So it's not here in container. It will be, however, here in column. And the reason why is because in column, the children that are using it include create button and footer. These are the two functions that are going to be using this thing. If it was only one, then you would wrap only that one with this. And the thing is, the smaller the more precise you get, the more efficient the app becomes, or the more efficient the page becomes, because there's less that has to be rebuilt every time the data updates. So it's like less processing power in a sense. But just to say safe, the higher you go, the more safe you are, I guess. That would be a good way of saying it. So this would be a good place to put our view model builder. And a view model builder is basically a widget that takes our view model and it kind of merges it with our screens, our UIs, our views. So let's go ahead and wrap this with a widget. And let's go ahead and type in view model builder dot reactive, because it's a reactive one. For literally 90% of the case, you're going to be using reactive. You're rarely going to ever be using non-reactive. And if we ever use non-reactive, I'll probably be the one working on it. But for like everything, even like everything I'm going to work on is probably going to be reactive. What's called so model view reactive. Non-reactive just means that it's not going to update. So it kind of defeats the whole purpose of this, but that may be a setting for very specific scenarios that you might want. So that's why that's an option. But we're just using reactive like almost all the time, whatever. So right now, this view model builder, it needs one thing. So you're going to have to do this little thing right here, and you're going to have to type in the name of the class of your model. So what is it called? Our register view model. So it's going to register view model. Cool. We're going to go ahead and import that. We're going to go ahead and import this. And now that we have all our libraries and stuff like that, let's go ahead and add the stuff that we need. We need a builder, and we also need a view model builder. These are the two parameters that we need. So we're going to replace child with builder. And what we're going to do is builder is a function that returns a widget, and it's basically given these parameters. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's do that. So basically this function is returning this, but then we also need to accept the parameters that they're giving us. Context model, which is an instance of this register view model, which is literally the thing that we're going to be using to access all of our functions. And then we have child, which is something that we're not going to need to use right now. Don't worry about this. But just make sure you add it, though. It's really just like important that you add this as a parameter, but you don't need to use it. Don't worry about it. Context, model, and child. So model has basically all of these functions right here that we can use. And yeah, so that's that. We also need one more thing, which is view model builder, and this is super simple. Model builder, it's basically a function that returns a new instance of this. Copy that, and we're basically creating a new instance of this. And this is the instance that that's going to be passed over here. That's it. Okay, cool. Now, what parts of this widget need access to these functions right here? And so basically this needs access to the functions, and this needs access to the functions. Actually, thinking about it, did we add? I don't think we did. We're going to need one more function, just so this is really important to know exactly everything. So I kind of missed a function right here. We're going to need a function to move to the sign-in page. Already have an account, then move to the sign-in page. So we're going to make a function, void, it's not really returning anything. Move to sign-in page. And the backend and like the view model will handle all the movement and the navigation of the app. So you don't have to worry about any of that. Everything, all the logic is in the backend. I mean, is in the view model. So move to sign in page, that's also going to be something we're going to have to add. Move to sign in page. And it's basically a function that's going to move the screen to the sign in page. And that's going to be passed to the footer. Okay, cool. Now that we have this model, we're going to have to pass them into these things because these two widgets are going to be using the functions in there. So let's go ahead and pass in the model. I'm passing the model right here as well. And then let's go ahead and click this button, and it's basically going to auto recommend to us. Whoa. Add a required parameter. There you go. And click this, add a required parameter, and it automatically puts that as the parameter and allows us to access it within the app. So now that we have our register view model, now we have our view model ready, and we have access to those functions. On pressed, basically, when we create the button, we need to check the email addresses, then we need to check the password, and then we need to do the final action of creating the user. So let's go ahead and take this, replace all this with this, because it's going to be a multi-line function. We're going to do the first thing, so we're going to do model dot check emails. So it's asking for 2 strings. Let's go ahead and pass in. Let's go ahead and pass in the text from the email control from the email text field and the confirm email text field, the current text. So we're going to do this dot email, and we can access the text from those text fields from over here through these text controllers. So we're going to this dot email controller dot text, and then this dot confirm email controller dot text. That goes there. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically just keep on doing this stuff. So we're going to say if that, and then we're just going to keep on going, and we're going to say if model dot, let's just say if that's the case, if not else, then show a pop-up to the user saying that they should make sure the text matches, the emails match. Then we're going to say if models, because these are booleans, these are returning booleans. So if so model dot check password, and then we're going to pass in this dot password controller dot text. And so if that's the case, then go ahead to the next step. Otherwise, there's probably a neater way of doing this. I'm just doing this as fast as I can so we can end the tutorial. And then show a pop-up explaining the issue, if there is an issue with the password. And then finally, we're going to do, once these 2 checks are passed, we're going to go ahead and do await, or like, because it's a future process, we're going to also have to add this as an asynchronous process. We're going to use await. And then we're going to use await, and what was that last one? Create an account. And that's probably going to be a future. So create account. Oh, sorry, model.create account. Create account. And then we're going to pass in the email, which is this, and then the password, which is word controller. Cool. Done. Done. And then from here on out, you can just have another function over here saying to redirect them to the home page. Or this can automatically redirect them to the home page. You can specify that in your thing. Okay, done. So we're done with that create button. We've implemented the functionality for that. And then now we got to implement the functionality for this button right over here. This on sign and pressed, it's basically one action. And it's basically model dot move to sign in page right here. That's it. We don't even have to do the curly braces and stuff. It's just one function. And also you remove the parentheses if we're doing this specifically. Actually, no, you're supposed to do this. My bad. Yeah. GG. That's basically it. Now we have refactored this code and we have implemented the view model, which has all of our functionality, which is basically the state management. Done. Tutorial done. Tutorial out. Oh, we can also delete this stuff since we no longer need it. All right, I hope you guys found that helpful. This is probably a really long video. Let me check. Yeah, this is 50 minutes. You guys can definitely, like, if you persisted through this, then kudos to you. All right, see you later.